We've got another direct question come in that I'd like to just put to Karen and Cheryl, please. So it was just saying, what should an employer do if they receive multiple flexible working requests all around the same time that unfortunately they can't accommodate them all? So for example, if 3 employees asked to work from home full time, would it be best to allow all of them or partial, or how would an employer go about kind of handling that?
Who would like to tackle that one? Do
you want me to field that one, Karen?
I'll let you, Cheryl. Seeing as it might end up in court, I'll leave that one for you.
I mean, that's the key, isn't it? I mean, that's ultimately what we're trying to avoid. See, I've heard that question many a time. When we get a few, shall we just try and do what's fair? Shall we? They all 3 come in at once, all 3 want to work from home. Shall we just do it so that they each get a little bit from home working? And that sounds like the sort of perfect solution, doesn't it? Everybody's happy, but actually, that's a very solution that could end up in some quite hot water. If you do have multiple requests coming through at the same time, the first thing you need to do is determine a fair way of determining the order they come in. Now, there isn't any legislation out there that's going to direct you to what that is, but the ACAS would seem to suggest that the best way to do that would be to take them in the order they are received, and that is a consensus of opinion in tribunal. So that sounds like a simple answer, doesn't it? But no, because it's never quite that simple, is it? So that's all well and good, where you've got 3 people put in the application. But I mentioned earlier about the duty for reasonable adjustments. So for example, it is conceivable that if of those 3 people that puts in the application, one of those people may be disabled, and it actually may be a reasonable adjustment to hear to deal with their application first. Or it might be that in determining that you're going to take them in order, you trigger some arguments of indirect discrimination. And what indirect discrimination is, in a nutshell, is where there's a rule in place, a practice, criterion or provision in place that will adversely affect one group of people with a particular protected characteristic. So in this example, disability. It will affect them more adversely. They will be disadvantaged by the rule than somebody who doesn't share that. So for example, if they're asking for home working and actually it's a benefit to them because of their mental or physical impairment, then it may be that the flexible working itself could be a reasonable adjustment, and it may be that hearing their application first itself is a reasonable adjustment, or avoids that claim for indirect discrimination. That's not to say just because someone has a protected characteristic you're going to take theirs first, because really we all have one. We've all got a sex. We've got a religion or a philosophical belief. We've all got those. The key is whether they are then disadvantaged. And then if they are, you then need to look at if it's a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim. Now, if hearing them in a certain order means that someone who really needs that flexible working for a reasonable adjustment is to be disadvantaged, then it's highly unlikely it's going to be proportionate. But there are other circumstances where there might be a disadvantage, but actually that might be the only fair way of determining it. You may have competing protected characteristic interests, in which case that PCP would be justifiable. So I think I sort of answered it and then told you why that might not be the answer. So
maybe it should be Jeremy Paxman show. I don't know.
but I mean that's the key, isn't it? And that's why people like me exist. Because number one, you need someone to ask what is the answer in this particular circumstance, and number two, you need someone to come to when you think you got the right answer and it turns out you didn't.
Very well put.
And I think again the position for me there would be that if you think that you have got a team that you might get multiple requests from, again acting proactively and taking that opportunity to have those discussions before those requests come in would be better, because it puts you in a better position in terms of making those decisions without having specific requests.